But imagine you being a politician in the US Senate or Congress, and you need to convince the US that we should print money to buy Bitcoin. You think? If you do think that, I want to know what you've been smoking, because I want some. Well, there seem to be more and more pension funds that are starting to get into Bitcoin. I would have, if you open your browser and you type in pension fund Bitcoin, I'm sure you'll get the article. I don't think BlackRock is actively manipulating the price. I don't think so. I have been looking at ETFs and their performance for the better part of the last 5 years, and this Bitcoin ETF was unreal. There's a large enough portion of people who have some Bitcoin and they want to get rid of it because they don't know what they're doing. So much for plan B. It's just offsetting risk, exercising the footnote, and the footnote has always put the screws on governments. That is why governments absolutely hate it.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Back on. It's good to see you again, man.
Really, really nice. Since the last time we recorded, a lot has happened, but probably the biggest news is the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Do you also think so, or is there something even bigger than that that you would like to highlight?
It was the biggest thing that happened. Again, this is all just my opinion. It was the biggest thing that happened in terms of attention within the Bitcoin community. Now, I don't want to be the Danny Downer here, but I think it's a little bit overhyped. I'm not saying it's not a great thing, but I've been asking around with people who are in the Bitcoin space. And when you ask them, like, so this Bitcoin reserve that President Trump is peddling, what do you think that is? And they think a little bit and they say, well, he's going to buy Bitcoin with US dollars. No, he's not. He's not. They go, what is it then? Well, so far, and I'm not saying he couldn't change his mind on this, and there are ways to do it. What the US strategic Bitcoin reserve is, and let's be honest, it's the only one that matters as of now, is they have a bunch of Bitcoin that they confiscated and they're just not going to sell it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's better than what the Germans did. That was hard to watch, man. That was hard to watch. But it's not like Trump has said, like, we're going to buy more Bitcoin. He's just going to keep the ones he already has. Like I said, good thing. I don't mind. That's good. But it's not as big of a deal as you may think. So he's not, if it stays as it is, there is not going to be any price action from this because it's already priced in.
How important is that? Because as you said, rightfully, so they already had the Bitcoin before. They didn't buy Bitcoin. They didn't do anything with that.
They have it.
But how important? Yeah, how important is that the USA is now wording them differently and saying we are strategically holding them, and we might buy more. Like how important is that narrative shift of like, oh, like we have confiscated Bitcoin to like we hold it strategically?
Okay, in terms of narrative, it's very important because people are easy to manipulate. I mean, if I come out and say what you just said is bullshit, then that's an insult. But if I say what you just said is bovine excrement, then it sounds a lot better. It's still the same thing, though. So from a narrative point of view, it can surely have an impact. When the United States has a strategic Bitcoin reserve and people are listening to this, they might be incentivized to act upon it. And that's a good thing. But that is way outside of my area of expertise. I mean, you need to have a marketing specialist there. From that point of view, it's great. From an effective point of view of what is being done, nothing's being done. Still better than what the Germans did.
Way better. They had 50,000 Bitcoins and now they have like 0.
Yeah, and how much did they effectively lose? How much would they have gained if they had just kept it? Like how many millions?
I think if you look at it was especially in the news when Bitcoin hit like 100K, 105K. And at that point it was, I think even in the 1 billion mark, I could be wrong here, but it was a really high amount in euros that they lost by basically selling them 6 months too early.
Look, at least paper hands get shaken out, whatever.
Do you think overall it's a good thing that governments buy Bitcoin, but some people say like we want the grassroots movement. We don't even want the governments to have that power.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because if you, I am on X. X is the only place where I actually have an account. I use it sparingly, mainly to lurk, and then I get the rest from other services that like scan Facebook, but you don't need to have an account. There seems to be two sides here. One side is saying we're the original cypherpunks, and we need to be against government, and this is very bad. Why are you all simping for the government? There is nothing wrong with idealism. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. The other view is that this was bound to happen, and this is actually a good thing, because the more people buy it, the scarcer it gets, the more the price moves up. And let's be honest here, whatever it is you want to do with Bitcoin, it is meaningless if price doesn't go up, number go up. I personally, I like to be a pragmatist. Sure, it would be great if the government was completely sidelined by this and it was all in the hands of private individuals, but that's a little bit blue-eyed. So I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I am saying that it's going to impact the price positively. It will lead to more mass adoption, and that I do regard to be a good thing. But I'm not going to chastise anyone who says that this is, from an ideological point of view, not the most favorable outcome.
It's interesting. It's also interesting how quick that move, and if there's like an effect where more and more states they are definitely looking into it, but if they're also acting on it. And there's this Loomis bill from, and I have I'm walking on a fine line here because I really have no clue of what America is doing with politics and what it takes to introduce a bill and what it means. But I've talked with some people, and there's websites where you can actually track those things. The Loomis bill is now a second time there, and there are many states like Texas seems to be a good one that they are also doing those things, and there are, if I'm not mistaken, 35 of those bills currently in discussion somewhere in America. So it feels like down the line, there could be a lot of Bitcoin buying if those all things pass. From what I understand, nothing has passed yet. It's all in the process.
I'll believe it when I see it. The question is, was what happened with this strategic Bitcoin reserve enough to start this domino effect? Because we have already been burned. I mean, the Korean central bank, I think, they wanted to buy Bitcoin. It was shot down in their version of parliament. As for the states, let me put it this way. On a pure numbers game, we should be glad. Because if we have one jurisdiction that tries to get this Bitcoin bill passed, there's a certain chance of it passing. But if we have 39 or so, is a higher chance that at least some will pass. So the start has been made. I am much more interested to see what will happen now that BlackRock is starting to shill that stuff. And they are shilling that stuff. I don't know which one. This article, I read it like weeks ago, but there seem to be more and more pension funds that are starting to get into Bitcoin. I would have, if you open your browser and you type in pension fund Bitcoin, I'm sure you'll get the article. I think that's going to be a lot better, because there's a higher chance that they'll do it, because they're not beholden to political bias. They just have BlackRock who's coming around and says, and I think somebody's going to correct me on this, the target of BlackRock is you should have at least 2% in Bitcoin. And they're across the line for private individuals, high net worth individuals. There you go. This is much more exciting to me than what the politicians are doing, because there is a lot more of them. There are a lot more pension funds around than there are politicians around who want to do this.
Interesting. Yeah, and I heard different targets from BlackRock. I think they also changed the target in their journey of getting orange pills somehow. But yeah, that's super interesting. It's also, yeah, like you think nation states is the big story, but then you see one company, MicroStrategy, having already bought 500,000 Bitcoin or more. Then GameStop is now coming out, and those institutions and pension funds and BlackRock that is selling basically Bitcoin, selling shilling Bitcoin and trying to onboard Bitcoin to their services, onboard funds to their services. I think this is a really big story.
These private little guys, because compared to governments, they're all little. They are much quicker to react, they're under a lot more pressure, and they work together with BlackRock, many of them. And 1,000 of those will make a higher impact than 3 or 5 US states or even the US government, because like I said, they're not buying anything. And quite frankly, I don't think they will. They're going to buy gold. They understand how gold works. They're not going to buy Bitcoin. You and me, we are in this bubble. We're hyped up and everything, and that's a good thing. I like the enthusiasm. But imagine you being a politician in the US Senate or Congress, and you need to convince the US that we should print money to buy Bitcoin. You think? If you do think that, I want to know what you've been smoking, because I want some. Like I said, and as for BlackRock, the main target... Sure, it has an impact, but I don't care that much about it. What I care about is that BlackRock is now in on it. And people completely underestimate this. BlackRock is not your college buddy who has an investment fund in his free time, which he tracks on Excel. We are talking about one of the largest, most evil, most nefarious, self-centered, profit-driven companies on the face of this earth. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if there's an opening to hell, it's somewhere in BlackRock headquarters or the DMV, depending on. It's the DMV. It's likely the DMV, but I could think that BlackRock is an outskirt of them. And these guys are in on it now. The main fact that they're in on it means that they've already made the decision. They already said we're going to do it. The question is how fast and how thoroughly. Of course, this also gives rise to speculations about price manipulation, as they have been circling around the internet. Those are some interesting conspiracy theories. But I mean, the difference between the conspiracy theory and the truth is about 6 months now, I presume.
It's I love how you describe BlackRock, but it is true. Like, we have a huge, powerful company, institution, whatever this thing is, on our side. That's just. Do you think this second year of the ETFs is the bigger story that is currently going on?
Bigger than what? I mean, economist here, compared to what?
Compared to a strategic Bitcoin reserve, to basically everything.
From a narrative point of view, no. From a price action point of move, yes, absolutely. Because first we've seen self, and now this Bitcoin ETF has reached a size in a time that I have never seen before, ever. I mean, I have been looking at ETFs and their performance for the better part of the last 5 years, and this Bitcoin ETF was unreal. And now the inflows are picking up again. So the only question remaining now is, like I said, the conspiracy theory on whether the price is being artificially held down by BlackRock through underhand on OTC sales in order to shake out the paper hands. Depends on how cynical you are. But the inflows have to, I mean, there are websites where you can track how much inflow goes into these ETF, and it's massively picking up. How
big of a, sorry, go on.
Mm-hmm. No, I was done.
How big of a risk is that for you, that they manipulate the price, and how long do you think they can even do it? Because we've seen it with FTX. They basically have done it. They held only a few Bitcoin for many Bitcoins they should have held, but eventually it blew up. BlackRock is a different beast than FTX, definitely.
First of all, this is nothing out of the ordinary. Price manipulation has been going on for as long as these companies have existed. I mean, we all fondly remember how JP Morgan tried to manipulate the silver price. The gold price has been manipulated by the LBMA themselves by misrepresenting how much gold they had on hand. And last but not least, you do realize that the gold price of the United States is still valued at around $30 to $40 an ounce, I think. Yeah. It's one of the ways how they might make some money by reevaluating it to market prices. So is BlackRock manipulating the price? I don't know. Depends on how cynical you are. If you go maximum cynicism, then BlackRock is selling Bitcoin in order to keep the price low, to shake out the paper hands, and then buying their Bitcoin and their own Bitcoin back again. If BlackRock was absolutely sure that they wouldn't get caught, they'll do it. I'd do it. I'm a piece of shit. I'm not going to lie about that. But depending on what the risk to their reputation is, I think it's a little bit up there. I think that the current price, which is, a little bit low in my opinion, is still being kept down by just regular paper hand selling, especially in the United States, because it's April. And I know this might be a fringe issue, but you do realize what happens on the 15th of April.
In the US. Like the tax season in America?
Tax day. And what do people do before tax day?
Oh, they have to sell something to get to have money.
If there's a large enough portion of people who have some Bitcoin and they want to get rid of it because they don't know what they're doing, this might be it. This is really fringe, but there are many different factors that come in. I don't think BlackRock is actively manipulating the price. I don't think so. But then I am such a goody two-shoes. I trust them because I have their ETFs as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's super interesting how when America and BlackRock moved into the ETF game, there's a lot of movements coming in, because we had a European one, we had, what was it, a Canadian one, I think, before we had
Hong Australian Kong, I think they want one too.
Yeah, like Hong Kong also, yeah.
And there are now some news coming in that, again, this is, I don't trust half the stuff I read online, and that's still too much. But that China might be actually making Bitcoin legal again.
It's interesting. How much are you paying attention to the price and where it should be? You said like the price seems a little bit low. Are you paying attention to like price models?
Seems low. No, there, in my opinion, and this is, I'm not that sophisticated. I'll be honest about that. There are only two ways how you could. There are spreadsheets for that. I'm not going to go into detail. I'll keep it really, really simple. There are only two ways how you could look at how the price of Bitcoin moves. As long as the retail era was going on, it was the 4-year cycle. That's it. As soon as the halving comes in, it goes up. Now we are in a transition phase between retail to institutional. I'm not going to say governmental because I don't care about them that much yet. And now, the one thing the two things that are going to drive the price now, in my opinion, again, my opinion, is supply and demand, which means the 4-year cycle will still have some impact, but liquidity. How much fiat money is being pumped into the system, because we measure it in fiat money so far. So the price will be strongly influenced by 4 major players: the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Japanese Central Bank, and the Zhongguo Renmin Yinhang, the Chinese Central Bank. These 4 are going to determine the price fluctuation depending on how much fiat money they are going to inject into the system, which means the question is, how much retard are they going to be? And we've seen from history that they will, in the end, eventually they'll all go full retard. I mean, Japan has already done it. Japan has gone full retard. The only thing that's saving their ass now is that the bulk of Japanese debt is in the country and not outside of the country. And they have large dollar reserves, which they can just fork out if they want to. As for the Chinese, they're currently trying to save their housing market, which is not going to work. And after that, they will have to see how they react to the tariffs that Trump is trying to impose. As for the ECB, the European Central Bank, they're like the special kid within the special class, because they'll just print money on every issue that you want. Right now, we need to send garbage bags to Ukraine, print 460 million. Is the money still there? We don't know. Just print some more. The only ones who are a bit of a conundrum, and they're also the biggest, is the Federal Reserve. And with the Federal Reserve, I have to say, I don't know what to make of these guys, because Powell, we know Powell is a spineless prick. He's no Volcker. So the question is, how is he going to react? Because his different mandates are currently a little bit intermingled. On one hand, their inflation target is still at 3%. It's high. However, the stock market is at an all-time high. Having said that, the employment market is starting to catch up again, and the tariffs are still an unknown. So Powell has made extremely contradictory remarks on how he wants to proceed with quantitative easing, quantitative tightening. We all know that whatever he says cannot be trusted because he can redefine what he actually meant. Yeah, that's what I said, but what I meant was, which is basically, yes, I was lying, but now I'm lying in a different way. And it all comes down to feeling. I can give you what my feeling is. I think Powell is going to cave. I think within the next year, he's going to start printing money again. He can't help himself. He has to. Maybe because he actually has a reason for it, or maybe just because he wants to get one over Trump. Because let's be honest here, Powell hates Trump. He hates him. He hates him so much. And fair enough, you can hate people for whatever reason you want. And once the Fed starts printing again, that will drive the price of Bitcoin up again. But that's just my personal uninformed opinion based on 8 factors. You can find people with spreadsheets with 3,000 factors on it.
And this is the thing that always comes with fiat money. Eventually there comes an issue. Eventually there comes a reason to print money, and then they will print money. And the more they print, the more money they have to print the next time to keep the whole system running.
Well, people in the Austrian school have always compared it to basically being drunk. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept. I have spent some time in festivals when I was young. Are you familiar with the concept of a Konterbier?
Yes, you hang over, and the next day to get another beer and get better.
Now, we both know that that's a very, very bad idea. But when it comes to fiat money printing, that's what they're doing. We got slightly drunk. Now we are about to sober up, but the headache is really bad. Let's get some more alcohol in, and more and more and more and more, until you finally just shut down. The question is, how long can they afford to kick the can down the road?
Do you think that there's a point where the can just explodes and the fiat system is over?
In a specific nation state? Absolutely. We've already seen that several times over this history of mankind. Can happen anytime.
I mean, globally, like there's literally no fiat money left.
No, because the government can mandate you to pay their taxes in fiat money. They can mandate you to pay fines in fiat money. And as long as they exist and do that, there is always going to be a case for fiat. The question is, how prevalent will it be? I mean, we could theoretically speaking arrive at a point where everything is done in Bitcoin, in maybe gold, maybe other stuff, and every time you need to pay your taxes, fine, I'll buy some fiat. There you go. Buy. Could be, but I don't think it will globally. And there is still competition going on. I mean, we've seen what happened in El Salvador. El Salvador is a really nice case example of what happens when you get pushback, and then you basically tell the IMF to bend over and relax. Because people have been misinterpreting that for the longest time. El Salvador made a Bitcoin legal tender. That's great. They never said it's the only legal tender, ever. And then the IMF came in, and they have now basically, El Salvador had some sort of mandate on Bitcoin as well. And the IMF said, we're going to give you more money, but you need to remove the mandate. And then Nayib Bukele basically said, okay, mandate's gone, but Bitcoin is still legal tender. Now the people can choose what they want to choose. So basically he screwed over the IMF. They just don't want to admit it. Fair enough.
That is so funny because I was in November in El Salvador.
Is it nice?
And it was nice. And the thing is, officially there was a mandate to accept Bitcoin payments.
It's gone.
I was in multiple shops and stores and on vacation spots where you can see and touristy things, like whatever you can imagine. Every time I was outside of the Bitcoin conference tour, every time I was just a normal guy there, nobody accepted Bitcoin. Maybe I was just in bad luck, but I can personally say it was not a mandate. It was definitely not a mandate. They were not afraid to not accept Bitcoin.
Then the impact is even smaller. The IMF basically got something that they already had. Nayib Bukele didn't care. Maybe it was even a trap, but I am not going to claim that he's playing 4D chess. That always turns out bad. Now the mandate is gone. Nothing has changed in El Salvador. I mean, after the mandate was dissolved, nothing changed. And they're still buying 1 Bitcoin a day. Good for them.
I even saw this chart. Sometimes they even buy more than 1 Bitcoin, like when it goes up because it's public thing. But I think especially when the news came out with the IMF, he posted that chart more often, and I think he bought in a day a little bit more than 1 Bitcoin.
I mean, if you can stick the middle finger in their face, then you should absolutely do it. These people deserve it. They deserve everything. I mean, I would have done the same thing. And the best thing would be if it turns out that he used the money from the IMF to buy Bitcoin. That would be the absolute like cherry on top, but no need.
It was a lot of money. Like it was 3.5 billion, if I'm not correct.
Something around those. I mean, billion. Next time it'll be a gorillion. You just need to print enough of it.
Yeah, we need new words for the amount of money that we will have.
Like 16 fantastillions.
One thing that I'm fascinated, the aspect of game theory is super interesting. We have now a very small country, Bhutan, which is extremely small. I think it's like half of Vienna or something like that.
They're using energy to mine Bitcoin and stuff.
Yeah, and they have around the amount of Bitcoin as El Salvador, or maybe even a little bit more. They are extremely, really having a lot of Bitcoin for the amount of people that they are. Then El Salvador obviously is stacking Bitcoin. Now America is,
not
we already
selling.
discussed, not selling. They're naming it Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. How do you think the game theory of Bitcoin and the states that are earlier in there, especially with Europe being like more in the CBDC direction, will play out?
My personal opinion, more and more countries will have to jump on, if for no other reason than not to be left behind, and whoever is last will get the least amount. I mean, I'm pretty sure that, let's assume that China really is thinking about liberating the law, allowing for Bitcoin, having their own Bitcoin. The only reason why they would do that is in order to get one over on the Americans. Question is who's going to come first. And the Americans, they are not first yet because they're not buying. El Salvador is first. El Salvador is first. The others, America is not first. So there's still time for other countries to jump in. Of course, if you reverse this whole thing like Germany and just sell what you have, then I don't know what to tell you. In Switzerland, we're now having a petition in order for the Swiss National Bank to buy Bitcoin. Switzerland is an extremely conservative country. Frankly, I think they'll get enough signatures in order to force the vote. I think it'll be voted no. And just recently, I've seen an interview on Business Insider with the head of the SNB, and he made it damn clear that he doesn't want to buy Bitcoin. His reasoning being that it's too volatile, which tells me everything I need to know about the guy.
It's so interesting what people bring up as negative points around Bitcoin, because you can actually tell a lot about a person that does not have Bitcoin, and asking like, why not Bitcoin? You can actually read a lot into that.
Yeah, you can, but it has gotten kind of boring recently. I mean, I've seen some threats again on X, and the arguments are just absolutely outlandish. Like, so what would you do if there's a blackout? What would you do if there's a blackout? And then, look, there's not going to be a blackout globally. Well, if there is a blackout globally, what happens to your precious bit? Okay. What would you do if the sun explodes and our whole solar system is swallowed up by a black hole and reality disintegrates? I mean, I can do this. How likely is that? How likely is that? They're running out of arguments, and they need to come up with more and more outlandish stuff, which is good for us, because if that's how far they need to go, we're safe. We're bloody safe.
And it's also interesting how a new thing always has to prove itself in every small detail, the quantum computing thing and stuff like that. A current system never has to, like, we don't ask the digital euro how quantum resistant it is. We ask Bitcoin, which is way better against those things, which is really interesting. What is maybe an interesting question for Bitcoin bulls like us? What is the best argument you heard against Bitcoin so far?
I've heard many good arguments against Bitcoin. The question is always, how likely are they? I mean, if the how's it called? What if the SHA-256 algorithm is breached? Which could be. Cryptography is making leaps and bounds every year. What if it's breached? Yes, that would be a problem. Now, you ask some cryptographers and they say, we just roll back the network to the point where it was, and then we use a new kind of hash. What if the government says you can't use it anymore? Well, again, unless the whole world is saying that, it's not going to do much. The Chinese tried it, and yes, in China, you can no longer have or mine Bitcoin, but the rest of the world didn't care. Bitcoin didn't care. There's even this one guy who didn't care, if you know who I'm talking about. You know that one guy?
Which are you talking about?
Okay, like, they forbid Bitcoin, and everything in China, Bitcoin went off. The mining, the holding, whatever. But then there was this company that was tracking where the nodes are, where the Bitcoin nodes are. And they figured out, you can find this online, I don't know where it was. There was one Bitcoin node, one, that was still active in China, operated by someone over the Tor network. Whoever that guy or girl is, that shows you got some balls. I mean, so one guy just said, nah, I'm going to keep operating my Bitcoin node. So that didn't work. Then, sure, if people say, if there is something better than Bitcoin coming up, if there is something even better than Bitcoin, so far I haven't seen anything. And based on the occurrence of such mediums of transaction, I don't think there will be anything in the near future. I mean, it took us quite a while to get to gold. And then it took us again quite a while to get to Bitcoin. If that's the time frame, still we're safe. So these are all good arguments against Bitcoin. No questions asked. They're just very unlikely.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now, if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition, for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. The thing is also Bitcoin is a social revolution and not just a technical one. So you not only if it would be so easy to just copy the code because Bitcoin is open source, then you can improve on one thing and then you have your own fork and you have your own coin and everyone is jumping on there because it's a social revolution that doesn't work entirely.
Well, I mean, that's already happening. Ever since the network went online, there have been many improvements to the protocol, which just had to be accepted by everyone. I mean, the BIP 39 with the word, that was an improvement. SegWit was everything is an improvement. That doesn't mean it needs to change. It's still the same thing. And I mean, the block size wars have shown us that it's quite resilient, even if you have a good argument, because the argument in the block size wars wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. They said we need more transfers. There are not enough transfers possible. The downside is that if the block size becomes bigger, people won't be able to operate their own node anymore. This was basically put up to a vote. And the majority decided, no, we're going to keep the block size as it is. We will have lower transaction volume. This was then saved through the Lightning Network. And the people who went with the larger block size, which is, I think, Bitcoin Cash, they're still here. They're just irrelevant, but you do you.
I love that they're still here, but irrelevant. Yeah, they went down. I mean, were you around at that time? Because I unfortunately not. It was the first time I heard about Bitcoin. I heard so many stories already around that time where people said it was actually looking like Bitcoin Cash is winning. And also the charts, when you look at the beginning times between where Bitcoin Cash came out, it actually looked like, maybe actually people are funding in.
Compare that price action to the price action of any other shitcoin and tell me what you see.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
I am not impressed. This was to be expected. Like every single shitcoin, meme coin, whatever coin, Dracula coin, your mama coin, in the beginning and down. The same thing happened with Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, it definitely I can just for the people that are not aware of that part of the history, it looks exactly like that. You start here and then it shot up actually. And it had some volatility, like up, down. But at some point, it was just very clear that
now
that
compare
Bitcoin is
it to any other shitcoin. Pick your favorite shitcoin that went down to nothing and then compare it. You'll see the exact same thing. I mean, I am not a big fan of those technical analysis stuff, which I think is just voodoo for finance people. It's just voodoo for finance people, just like astrology is racism for women. But it's the same thing. Up, going down. Where's the difference? Where?
Absolutely, it's just short term, like hype, and then like it actually has no value. It goes down.
Okay, I have some friends who work in one of the biggest banks in Switzerland. I'm not going to name it, and there are quants. In case you know what a quant is, right?
No.
It's basically a mathematician who decided to go into finance. That's a quant. And they have programming experience, and they all told me they can make a shitcoin tomorrow, and this is exactly how the price action will look like. Nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, there's even a site, pump.fun, where you can actually make it yourself. And this completely disrupted shitcoining, because now there's no technical expertise needed whatsoever. Like you can, literally everyone can do it.
I mean, even the Ethereum network is not protected. You can just piggyback on it. You can literally piggyback any kind of shitcoin on the Ethereum network. You just have to buy the Ethereum and you buy the shitcoin with it. Fair enough. But I mean, Ethereum itself is a weird type of shitcoin because it's the most obvious example of centralization.
Are we ever gonna completely get rid or mostly get rid of those shitcoins?
No, it's too much fun. No. Why would you say that? This is the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. That's like saying, are we gonna get rid of pinks? Like those micro stocks in the US, which you can buy for like 2 cents. Like, why would you buy those if you can buy the S&P 500? But they're there. People are making money off that, so it's fun. It's entertaining. I want more of that. I want more shitcoins. Like, do it. It's going to keep the market clean.
The free market behavior, and free market is fun.
Yeah. Why not? Why would you want to get rid of that? This is the most entertaining stuff I have seen ever since the Cold War. And I was there for 6 years of it. Just my opinion.
I love your opinions. That's why I invited you back, because it's for me, it's fun to interview you. One thing I want to get a little bit deeper on is Bitcoin in Europe, because there is some interesting things happening. For example, in Swiss, in Lugano, there's a lot happening. Even in Czech, where always the big conferences and where the central banker even talks about maybe adopting Bitcoin and stuff like that. How do you look at Bitcoin in Europe?
Okay. From a political point of view, Bitcoin was extremely interesting because it showed us that Europe is not the EU. It never has been, never will be, and they can try all they want. Czech people will never be German people, and that's a good thing. They don't want to be. It has shown us because all the different governments have reacted differently, the people reacted differently, and so on and so forth. Germany has a lot more Bitcoin users based on nodes than the Czech Republic, even by a per capita basis, as far as I know. But the government seems to be extremely hostile on it. At the same time, the Czech Republic doesn't have that many Bitcoin nodes or users, but the government doesn't seem to give a crap. Currently, if you want to talk about the Great Schism, I think we're going to see a great schism between the West and the East, with Western Europe becoming more hostile towards Bitcoin before they finally bend the knee, and Eastern Europe not being that hostile and not having to bend the knee because they can't afford it. Western Europe can't afford it. Western Europe, those are what I like to call legacy countries. Legacy countries are countries that are skirting by their past success. Like, well, we're Germany, we're Britain, we're France, we're great, we've always been great. We don't need this. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. While Eastern Europe is still has this memory of being underappreciated, of being taken for granted, so they're much more open to not resisting new stuff. That's the only thing I think Bitcoin will do in Europe. But this is the cool thing about Bitcoin. Doesn't matter what happens in Europe. It really doesn't. Because there is North America, there is South America, there is Southeast Asia. China might be coming back. There is Japan, there is Australia, yada, 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 yada. So I don't need it to work here. I have my exit plan. I have 3 passports, I have 2 residence permits, and I can move. And throughout history, the footvote has always been the one that counts for most.
Plan B is also something super interesting. Maybe we can get into that later. But one more thing. Do you think the EU will disintegrate?
I really don't know. I can't decide. I hope they will. I really do. But if they will disintegrate from the east to the west. It is much more likely that it will splinter into different parts. And we are already seeing this. Eastern Europe is getting really fed up with Brussels, with Hungary leading the charge. But Hungary isn't the only one. Hungary is just a flag bearer. You can, for some weird reason, I don't know why, Hungary is not the strongest economy. It's not the biggest economy. There'll be Poland there. But for some reason, they are punching way above their weight. And I'm not saying this because my name is, and whatever, they always wait for Viktor Orban to come out, spit into the faces of the people in Brussels, and as soon as he does it, they all pull after. So I think the EU completely disintegrating has a lower chance of the EU splintering. Like suddenly you have the Visegrad group that make their own thing. Western Europe stays together. There are a few outliers like Switzerland and Liechtenstein. I think that's much more likely. I hope that they disintegrate. I still maintain that the British did the right thing getting out of there, except they're not reaping the benefits because their own government is completely beyond themselves. I mean, Keir Starmer is doing a great job removing the last vestiges of their greatness.
Yeah, it's crazy what's happening. I don't hear anything positive from the UK. You hear news from the UK, and it's always someone got arrested for tweets, someone did that, and it's never a good story in my eyes, at least.
The UK, Canada, and Australia are on the best way to become totalitarian shitholes. I mean, I don't know how many of those news articles tell the whole story, but you always see these comparisons, these comparisons that they make for some dude has done a bad post on Facebook and gets 5 years in prison. I'm just making this up now, but this is the gist of it. Gets 5 years in prison, and then you have some guy who raped 2 children and he gets 6 months on probation. I don't know, but this is the way it goes. And I don't know how long they can keep it up because the people are getting restless and we still remember how to make guillotines. It's not that hard. The French have proven that it can be done. It can be done again.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Let's coming to the point of Plan B. How important, or let's start differently. Why did you say, okay, I want to have a Plan B. I want to have different passports. I want to have protection against where I live.
Okay, let's turn this into an economic back and forth. Do you think that the place where you live has a higher than 0 chance of becoming unlivable for you?
Yes.
You don't have to tell me the exact number. You're just telling me, does it have a higher than 0 chance?
Absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. Good. So it has a higher than 0 chance. Good. Now, how much would you be willing to pay in order to offset that risk? You don't have to tell me how much. You don't have to tell me. I'm just going to start throwing around numbers. Would you, whatever that risk is, would you be willing to pay 5 million euros in order to offset that risk?
I couldn't.
Okay, you can't. Fine. 1 million euros? 500,000 euros?
No.
250,000 euros?
Getting closer, but no.
150,000 euros?
Still no.
100,000 euros?
Yeah.
Okay, for 100,000 euros, there are several jurisdictions on this planet where you can get a residence permit. Now, this is you. There are other people who can afford all of these options. So why wouldn't they? They just never thought about it. For 5 million, you can get this new, golden visa that the US just introduced, where you just get residence without tax stuff. I don't know if it's already online, but they're discussing it. For 500,000 euros, you can already get passports in a couple of countries. For 250 to 150,000 euros, you can get a citizenship in a Caribbean island. All we do is offset risk. Now, I was able to offset risk through means that weren't that expensive. I got my Hungarian passport back because my grandparents never gave it up. That was a genius move by me. Thank you very much. I got yet another passport due to my family from a country which I'm not going to mention because it's very unhealthy. And I married a Chinese girl. She had the opportunity to get naturalized in Switzerland. She didn't. We discussed it. Why not? Because she would lose her Chinese passport. But as long as she has her Chinese passport, I can move to China with her whenever I want. Some people might say, well, what would you go to China? It's an option. I just want options. Then I was one of the last people who got residence in Paraguay. Paraguay, up until 1.5 years ago, offered a permanent residence permit if you deposited $5,000 with them. I did that. I have Paraguayan residence. So
wait, 5,000 and you get a permanent? Wow,
yep.
That's low.
Yep. Just residence permit Paraguay. El Salvador, 1 Bitcoin, you can get residence. So all I had to do for one of those things was go to the embassy and show that my grandparents were Hungarian, risk offset for Western Europe. Okay. I had to fly down to Paraguay with my stuff, get a lawyer, pay 5,000 euros, and I got a residence permit. Offset the risk again for just $5,000, plus the flight, plus the hotel, and I had a great time. Paraguay is great, by the way. Absolute lovely country, very conservative, people are down to earth. And by discussing it with my wife, we were able to reserve the right to go to China if necessary. So I have 4 options, and it cost me what? 15,000. I offset the risk.
Yeah, there's this losing passports. I think that's still a law in Austria where you cannot have a second one. There are some exceptions to it. I never read into it very deeply, but there are exceptions to it. But they are mostly not allowing it.
One question, and I'm not indicating it. How would they know?
I have no clue.
How would they know? Like how do I word this so I don't get into trouble? Theoretically speaking, if I had a friend in Austria who bought himself one of those Caribbean citizenships, how would it be possible that he's still having both citizenships 4 years after the fact? Just a hypothetical. How would they know? There are ways how governments can know. The Chinese, they are pretty harsh on that. If you take up Swiss citizenship, when you fly back and you don't have a visa stamp or your residence permit, they will ask you, how the hell did you get into Switzerland? Then you have to come clean. But other than that, nah. Why would you know? It's even easier than that. Even the Chinese cannot control it. I know of a couple married. They're Chinese. They have Caribbean residence, their Caribbean passport. They bought it. They always fly over Europe. Once they fly over Europe, they get a visa for Europe, and when they fly back to China from Europe, they present the visa. The Chinese don't know that they have citizenship in the Caribbean.
That's interesting. Now, I'm too good of a citizen, I think.
Yeah, that's a bad thing.
No, because I literally never thought about because, for example, there are many friendly country visas in many places. For example, Panama, which costs not a lot of money. I think the last time I checked, there was offers around 30,000 with everything done, actually, which then you can actually be there and do things. But I always I will lose my Austrian passport. I'm like, okay, but maybe I don't. how do they know?
So I don't know. Aren't the way to go. Like I said, there are countries that offer residence permits, which you can technically buy. I went to Paraguay because you don't have to live there. You get the residence permit. I have to go there once every 2 years, and it stays valid. There are countries in Southeast Asia that have similar kinds of programs. Go online, look it up, pick your poison, and then go with it. Or don't.
Interesting, yeah. It's important, I think, yeah. But I mean, absolutely.
I did this in order to offset risk. I'm still in Switzerland. I hope I don't have to leave. I will probably leave when I reach retirement age, because living out retirement in Switzerland from a fiscal point of view is suicide. But
it's expensive in Switzerland.
Well, not just that, you get more bang for your buck abroad. I mean, people are always looking down on those who do it. I have a colleague who got retired. He retired 6 months ago. He had this all planned out. He moved to Thailand. He's a Bitcoiner too, by the way. He moved to Thailand with his wife. Now, why would he do that? He did that because his pension there gets him more bang for his buck. And I don't mean in the sexual way. I mean he can afford a lot more. And we see this all over the place. We see it in Germany is a particularly sad example. The German government decades ago has basically convinced the German citizens to stop planning for their own retirement and just give it to the government. And now retirees are getting absolutely nothing. You got poor old people who worked for 30 years as plumbers, as carpenters, and they can't afford anything anymore. It's quite sad. There are documentaries about this. What do these people do? They go to Bulgaria. Just the power purchase parity, the value of that retirement allows them to live a more dignified life in Bulgaria. And this is going to play out really badly for legacy countries in the future. Because if, let's say, Europe goes full fascist, like, no, we won't accept Bitcoin, we will regulate the hell out of it, we're going to make your life hard, Bitcoiners will be able to go to places that accept Bitcoin, and the places that are generally poorer will be much more incentivized to accept Bitcoin, and where you can live with your Bitcoin. Of course, that is only if you want to use your Bitcoin up. The next big thing will be income from Bitcoin, and there is already a way to do that, but it's still in the making. So much for plan B. It's just offsetting risk, exercising the footnote, and the footnote has always put the screws on governments. That is why governments absolutely hate it. Governments hate the footnote. The Berlin Wall was not built to keep the West Germans from getting into East Germany, okay?
That's why it's so important to have Bitcoin. It's probably, for me at least, the most important tool of freedom. And there are a lot of tools, as we discussed, Plan B and other things or skills that you can acquire by, or like with time, that you can acquire to have those freedom tools. But for me, Bitcoin is so fundamental, because if you don't own your money, they can rip your whole life out with one word.
I mean, we have now seen an example of how strong this is. There is this, if you put that into your browser again, there is this one guy who has been ordered by a court in Puerto Rico, I think, to hand over his Bitcoin. And he said no. And they can't take it from him. So instead, they imposed a fine of $10,000 a day. Now, sure, you can do that. But what it shows is if you don't give them the code, they cannot take possession of it. It's one guy, but this guy has proven if you take your security seriously, if you follow all the steps, then the government cannot take it. They can try to coerce you, but you still need to actually hand it over. It's this one guy, the fine is, I know that the fine is $10,000 a day. The court ordered him to hand over the Bitcoin. He refused, and they can't take it. They can only try to coerce him into giving it up, but they can't take it. So if you are able to remember 24 words, you can get out of somewhere and go to somewhere else, and then your Bitcoin is still yours.
Yeah, it's the one currency, the one asset that you can even take to your grave if you really want to do that. People can still shoot you, people can still arrest you and stuff.
The $5 crowbar attack is still a thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you can choose to die with your Bitcoin. You can choose to keep them with everything else, with like gold, houses, real estate, cars, whatever. They can shoot you in the head, and they just have it then.
It's the only asset that you have full control over, as long as you have control over your own thoughts. So yeah, in that case, it's an absolute paradigm shift. And this will happen if any jurisdiction decides to become too effed up for their own good, people will choose to leave, and you can't stop them.
Amazing. One last topic before we come to the end routine. I want to get in there. I'm really obsessed with medium of exchange use case these days of Bitcoin. How important is that for the overall story of Bitcoin? So we actually also spend it and use it as a currency or as money.
Well, the original white paper from Satoshi Nakamoto says that it's a peer-to-peer exchange, so it's meant to be a medium of exchange. Now, we hit a little bit of a brick wall because of the block size stuff, because it's hard to actually transfer it. That has been solved by the Lightning Network. So in the future, if Bitcoin is going to have any usability, I hate that word, usability, it will have to make inroads into becoming a medium of exchange. And if you go with what the Austrian school says, it should, because the medium of exchange is simply the most saleable good. And Bitcoin is the most saleable good. Now, first, we're going to have that whole spiel of good money drowning out bad money, people trying to get rid of all other mediums of exchange, and then Bitcoin will come in. But we're already seeing that. I mean, you can buy stuff with Bitcoin online already. There are places that accept Lightning, but this is a slow process. People need to get used to it.
It takes time. Yeah, it's not a overnight thing. We are if you see how long gold took, I mean, it's a different world now, but if you see how long this took, it will take time with Bitcoin too. And it's a powerful thing. I now have, with my small podcast business, income, most of the income actually in Bitcoin. And also, I'm now starting to pay things and pay people in Bitcoin. So there's already some money streams that never touch the fiat systems. And those money flows that never touch the fiat system are actually getting bigger. I mean, I'm a special case because I work for Bitcoin companies. I'm interact only with Bitcoiners, basically, in the business world. So I know I'm probably a little further ahead of the adoption curve, but this shows me how powerful this is. I can have my bank account being on a metal plate and just operate it by a phone whenever I want to.
You need to be realistic. Right now, Bitcoin is more of a store of value. You can't argue with that. The question is, how fast will the transition take place? And I think it'll take up speed, especially because it's borderless. It's losing its bad name. We have some positive feedback from the US due to it's a Bitcoin reserve. So that's all good. I'm here for it. The question will be at a later point whether you can generate actual passive income with Bitcoin. Now, there are some inroads that are being made with this, with MSTY, which is an interesting concept, but it'll take a lot of time. And quite frankly, even if it doesn't, if we can tie second layer stuff to Bitcoin and then use it within a normal banking environment, why not? I mean, it has been done before. Back when people were still using gold, paper money was just a second layer on gold, and it worked fine until the government effed it up. But it worked fine.
That's interesting. MSTY is, I think, an interesting topic. Give people a background, because I think almost nobody knows about it. I also never really researched it. But what is that thing?
Again, to completely explain it would be like a 2-hour thing. It has already been explained a lot better, again, by what's his name, British Hodel. So I'm going to keep this real short. One of the main things was Bitcoin did not generate income. Can't generate income. But when the ETF came out, it opened Bitcoin, as I said in our last meeting, to every financial instrument that there is, which includes options. Now, MSTY is an instrument where you essentially can pay into, and due to options tradings, it will generate an about 7% income on your Bitcoin. They pay out every month. So this is a way for people to generate income from Bitcoin. The downside is it sacrifices upside and downside volatility. And the general way Bitcoin goes is upside. So you get a certain amount of income, but you are foregoing any value gain that Bitcoin has over the long run. Depends what you want. If you say, I have enough Bitcoin and I don't want to spend that Bitcoin because I want to keep that Bitcoin, then you just put a lot of more fiat into MSTY and you get a steady income and you don't have to use up your Bitcoin. If not, you will have to sell some of your Bitcoin every now and then in order to keep yourself alive. As of now, it's the only, and in my opinion, best instrument there is. So if you want to generate income and you don't want to sell your Bitcoin, buy MSTY. That's it. That's the short version.
And I think there is so much more coming. I think if we look into 5-10 years,
in MSTY was I think it's Mister. It's from Saylor. Now, if this thing takes off, it's not going to take long for BlackRock to do something similar or Bitwise, but it will be possible to gain income on Bitcoin in the confines of an ETF, as long as you are willing to sacrifice the upside momentum for it. And that can be a very valid thing to do depending on where you stand in life. Because let's say, if you are 80 years old, then you can start selling, unless you want to hand it over to your kids. But if you don't have any kids, just sell the Bitcoin, unless you want to take it into your grave and lower the total amount a little bit more for the rest of us. But if you have another 50 years to go and you want a steady income, you don't want to sell the Bitcoin you already have, then you buy MSTY and you have an income with it. It's absolutely valid. Depends on where you are in life. And I'm not telling other people what to do, because other people are not me. I know, shocking.
They definitely aren't you. Really cool. I have now a new question that I think in the first round I actually did not ask, that I now ask since almost a few hundred episodes, every guest. And the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
What can you learn from me besides Bitcoin? Don't wait too long to get a polish cream for your bald head. I have been shaving my head for over a decade, and I was very, very machismo about it. So I shave it, it bleeds a little bit, and I rinse it off, and that's it. And 3 months ago, a colleague of mine, who is even more macho than me, I know I'm just so an alpha male, but he told me I should really start using a cream for my bald head. So I finally gave in and bought one, a moisturizing cream, and I have to say it changed my life. This is so good. And don't underestimate the power of male hygiene and care products. Because after I started using cream on my face. I'm over 40 years old now, and I wish I had started earlier. It's something that we men are neglecting. We're absolutely neglecting it, and I think we should start earlier with it. So I don't know how young you are. I'm not going to ask for your age.
26.
Okay, you're very fresh. Do yourself a favor right now. Do you have a skincare regimen?
Yeah, I actually have, but not because I my girlfriend is Indian, and I still don't reveal her on the channel, but she has a skincare and
she knows more than
channel.
You. And trust me, there is nothing wrong as a man to have a full and fitting skincare regimen. You will thank me later. Your girlfriend is going to thank me later. All the single guys out there, if you just take a little bit care of your skin, it'll make such a difference. That is something that I want to put out there in the world, because I wish I had started earlier. Because I haven't, this is the result. Now all I can do is maintenance.
How many steps are you doing? How many steps in the skincare routine are you doing? My girlfriend is always obsessed with how many steps someone is doing.
I never counted. I just know I have one for this when I shave it. I have a facial cream and I have a moisturizing cream, and I apply them now religiously every evening.
Yeah, I because it's also very important for her that I do something for my skin, because she's saying she had very bad skin and she had dealing with the skin since 15 years old, and she had improved her skin massively. I saw the skin how it was before and how it is now. It's really great how her skin got better. And she's like, you're blessed with great skin, so don't mess it up. And I now started since like I think half a year or like maybe 8 months or something like that. I do the skincare. I do 3 steps. I do washing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Never
you
washed
should
my
do
skin.
that anyway, but
No, like washing it with like
oh yeah, I get what you mean.
I never washed my like water was the only thing I put on my skin before, and then I do a serum, and then I do moisturizing, like very very easy,
Serum, I
done in
don't.
like 3 minutes.
What else can you learn from me? I can be a cautionary tale. This is the result of not caring for your skin. Take me as a very bad case study. This is how you will end up if you don't do it. And now look at this guy. This is what you can maintain if you start doing it. So many lives could have been saved if I had admitted to myself that it is not unmanly to take care of my skin.
Another thing, my hair is starting to fall out, especially in back there.
Go bald, go bald, go bald.
Yeah, but my girlfriend also doesn't like that. So I'm actually starting to how's that thing called? Not shampoo. Oh gosh, how's that thing called that you put on there?
I have no idea.
A conditioner.
Conditioner. No. This look. I will die. This is the ideal male haircut. You may not like it, but that's how it is, and I will die on that hill. This has made my life so much better.
I was bald for, I think like, I once was bald and let it grow out again in the COVID time around 2020. And it was really great. Like you stand up, you go for a short shower, and it's like, you don't have to mess with your hair. And my hair is, is always weird.
I never regretted starting to shave my head. I do regret it. I didn't start with the bald stuff, the cream that I put on now, which is specifically for the head. Wish I saw that. That's what you can learn from me.
I never thought that we will talk about skincare and in the end, but it was
you asked. You asked.
I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it. It was a fun podcast with you, Mike. We have an end routine in the podcast, as I did it also last time, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And there's an interesting one. What is the best thing someone can do for Bitcoin?
Okay, I used to be into grand gestures. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. I'm no longer into grand gestures. I think the best thing you can do everything starts at home. I think the best thing you can do is talk to your friends and your family where you actually have skin in the game and convince them. And then convince yourself that that's enough. There are people who are already doing grand things. You're not going to be the next Nayib Bukele. You're not going to be the next Michael Saylor. You can try if you want to, and I wish you the best of it. But for people like you and me, the best thing you can do is to take care and inform and help the people around you who are closest to you and who you care about. That has a much greater impact, I think, than trying to go outside and change the world. There's this famous saying, I don't know where it comes from. Everybody wants to save the world, but nobody wants to help mom do the dishes.
If you wanna change the world, start with your neighborhood.
So I had this time where I have felt this incessant need. I closed it down since then to post on X and Facebook. I used to have an account, and in every group, it doesn't matter. I had much greater success and enjoyment and satisfaction and catharsis when I was talking to my mother, explained it to her, and she told me, you know what, okay, I'll try it, and she's still growing strong. Did the same for my brother, did the same to a close friend of mine. That has given me much more satisfaction. That is the best thing you can do for Bitcoin. by helping your immediate friends and family and the people you care about.
Which is a perfect transition to the last thing. I usually ask the guest where they can reach you best, but you don't have anything where people can reach you.
You can reach me under bald guy at advers.ch. That's bald guy, just one word, at advers.ch. I will get your email.
Perfect. Then we have a contact for you, and people can contact you if they really want to, and maybe they can also just write a comment, and then you can see it also. Really cool. Thank you so much, Mike, for being on. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye bye.
Thanks, yeah.